Hey, everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, and this is my generally weekly comic book countdown of the comic books I picked up this past Wednesday. It's now Tuesday, so the new comic books are coming out tomorrow, but I won't be getting them right away. I'm actually in a different house. I'm on the coast. It's my daughter's spring break, so we decided to rent this place by the ocean, fairly close to the ocean. I can see it in the distance there. So anyway, I've just finished reading the comic books from this past Wednesday. I had 8 of them, and I would say they divided up into a group of 3 that were just okay, and a group of 5 that were all excellent. So the top 5, any of them could have been a number 1 for me in any given week. Excuse me, clear my throat. Coastal frog in my throat. So I won't be able to get my comic books tomorrow. I guess I'll probably get them on Saturday. So I'll be running late for a while doing these countdowns, or maybe skip a week. We'll see. And always, as I always like to point out, these are super subjective in terms of the ranking, not based on like aesthetic criteria, but more just on how much I happen to enjoy them at the time I read them. You know, if I read them another week or whatever, it might have been different. So, or in a different context or what have you. So I'm not being a critic. This is just a personal vlog about comics. So, and I think maybe I particularly was thinking of that because in my last place at number 8 is Bitterroot number 11. And I know that lots of people are saying this is an excellent comic. I decided to pull the, what I think of as the Jared Osborne move and just jump in the middle. So this is the very first issue of Bitterroot I picked up, and it just did not hook up or connect with me. Most of the book, strangely enough, seemed like a summary of like a story that happened elsewhere or catching you up, but it just didn't do a good job of catching me up. I had trouble sorting through who all the characters were and what the situation was. Is everyone on Earth turning into devils? I'm not sure. It sort of implied that. I just couldn't connect all the dots, even though, and because the whole book kind of read like a summary of events, it was actually kind of a stodgy read for me. I did like the art. The coloring is a very interesting coloring style, and in my reductive way, to me, it felt like another book that has kind of that BPRD feeling, from the Mike Mignola universe. Just like I felt like American Vampire kind of had that BPR feeling. A group of people who are, in some way that I couldn't really connect the dots in, working together to fight some supernatural evils in the world, or seeping into the world, or trying to get back into the world, that kind of thing. And related to BPRD, actually kind of in that same vein, by the same author, Mike Mignola, is his Baltimore universe, which in the past was mostly about vampires during World War I. But now we're heading into World War II. Lord Baltimore is dead, and Lady Baltimore is taken over. And I was all set to love this. I was really excited they were going back to the Baltimore universe, but it did not work. The dialogue seemed clunky, the introduction of the characters and the conflicts, everything was clunky about it, and I'm not sure why. It's the same writing team, a different artist. I don't think we can blame it all on the artist, though. So I'll give it a few more issues anyway, just because I'm curious as to whether they can pull it back together and whether I can enjoy it as much as I did the original Baltimore. In a way, compared to Baltimore, where they always gave with kind of a minimalistic storytelling style, this gives a lot more exposition in dialogue of people talking to each other, and yet it still feels like it's missing something. And I can't put my finger on what that is. And then we got another one I jumped into, Tarna. I was hearing people talking about it. At first I didn't pick it up because it's kind of a heavy metal corporate character in a way. It's owned by the heavy metal corporation. It's not an individual creator. It's a character they created kind of in imitation of a Mobius character to be the thread that tied all the stories together in the original heavy metal movie. And I guess occasionally they've done comics about her. So, but I heard some things people were saying about it. It sounded fun. There was an artist on it, which I think has changed with this issue. I'm going to try and look for back issues, but apparently this comic's heating up among speculators or something, so it's hard to find. Anyway, it was a fun, really fast read, kind of, someone compared it to Conan, but definitely kind of a sword and sorcery kind of story, basically. Fun, lively, pretty good art, good coloring, and not a whole lot happened. Like there was a big fight with the dragon, basically, and we got kind of an evil warlord, I guess, and that's about it. So I think I'll probably pick this up unless I feel like I have too many comics on a given week that it's out, and I might look for previous issues, just because I like this kind of thing, but there's nothing super special about it, judging from that one issue. And like I say, it was a super fast read, so it's not a deep involved story. Very different then, and so now we're in my top 5, all of which would have been awesome. At number 5 is Crimson Flower by Matt Kindt, Matt Lesniewski, and Bill Crabtree. And it sort of continues in terms of being, you're there for the art, and then the story is interesting too. But I put this at number 5 in my top set here because it doesn't feel like as cool of a Matt Kindt story as I usually expect from Matt Kindt. It feels a little more straightforward, maybe just about serial killers who used to be assassins, basically, sort of. And I think there's just one more issue to go. I won't show the final page because that shows something that may or may not be what it seems. But so there's a lot of fight scenes in here, as there was in issue 2. So is issue 4, the final issue, going to be another long, extended fight scene? Matt Luzinski certainly draws unique fight scenes, and Bill Crabtree colors them in a way that makes them really well. You can see the colors here. There's nothing super strange about the colors, but they're also kind of idiosyncratic, which goes well with the idiosyncratic art. And they give the art an extra luminance or intensity. But so it's really the weakest point, much to my surprise, is the Matt Kindt writing. And I certainly love most Matt Kindt books. So I'm still hoping that issue 4 will kind of change my feeling on that. But still, it was a delight to read or take in that comic. Another visual delight in a different way, completely different style. Dan Mora and Tamara Bonvillain, again, an artist and a colorist who together are greater than the sum of their parts, so to speak, who really click. I like Tamara Bonvillain on anything she colors, but this is definitely her peak work that I've experienced. And we get all kinds of interesting twists and the like going on here in Once and Future. So I was putting this at number 4 with the script by Kieran Gillen, but it's getting hard for me to keep track of everything, so I feel like it's a little bit written for the trade. I mean, it's kind of exciting to read as a monthly comic, but there are aspects where I definitely say to myself, well, I need to go back and reread things to track all of this. I definitely, in this issue, I found the character of Merlin becoming more interesting to me, and I'm hoping to get more of him and what's going on with him. And of course, there was this really cool sort of demon centaur creature who's actually Galahad, which is crazy. So is that the same Galahad we saw earlier? I'm having trouble keeping track of all the people and how they're related to each other and such. But still, had a blast reading it. I'm having a blast just looking at the pictures right now. So it was especially a good week for great art, I would say. In at number 3 was Haha, which is, this indescribable series written by Prince. What's his first name? W. Maxwell Prince. That's a hard name to remember. And each issue drawn by a different person. This one by the great Roger Langridge. And I say great just because I've been aware of him for a while, but I haven't seen much of his art, just here and there. And he often is segregated in the all ages section. But he is a really good artist, and I would love to see more of him. In fact, it reminds me that I want to go back and find more of. He did a comic book called, when I first started this doing videos, a comic book called like Snarf or something like Snarf, and it was really good. But I only picked up one issue back then, and then I think it faded away. But I really enjoyed it. But I also felt at the time I needed to go back and read the earlier issues. And it was published as young adult. So anyway, this one, the clown of this issue is a mime, and Maxwell Prince really took advantage of the kind of style and humor and storytelling that Langridge could bring, and did a silent story with a lot of whimsy. And look at the mime and the robot dancing together there. Still had that heartbreaking quality. I mean, Maxwell Prince is kind of merciless in bringing you heartbreak in his stories. But a really beautiful comic, wonderful to read, and I think, it's kind of sad, so all age kids wouldn't want to read it, but certainly. There's nothing so horrifying in it. There is some blood right at the end, yeah. So it's sad, but you could show it to a kid who can deal with sad stories, but it's great for adults. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do next in Haha. So that was number 3. In at number 2, always one of my top contenders, and with a cover that really speaks to me as a old Frank Frazetta fan, because this is a homage to a Frank Frazetta painting featuring a werewolf. This is it says it's part 2 of 3, but it feels like we've been in this story longer, where Usagi's teaming up with some kind of mythological character, a Tengu or something like that, or is Tengu his name, who are now fighting these werewolf type of creatures, who are also apparently Japanese mythological creatures. And as always, extremely well told story by Stan Sakai, just in the pacing and everything. It's more like a sword and sorcery story to me, so it doesn't dig as deep on the emotions as some Usagi Yojimbo stories, but I'm totally happy now with almost every Usagi Yojimbo story, and I really enjoyed it. And I hate to admit it, because the colorists are now Hi-Fi Design, so that's like just some company with a rotating group of colorists, I believe. But the colors really suited the story and really made the story pop well, too. So I wouldn't... Normally I say you can jump in on any Usagi story, but this one would be okay to jump in on. But you might want to go an issue back. But to really get people hooked on Usagi, I don't think this would be the one I recommend. But anyway, still a super fun issue. So, in at first place, the big winner in the Can You Keep Damien Thrilled sweepstakes this week was Rain Like Hammers number 3. First of all, I'm amazed at a comic book that is at least twice as long, although I think even more than twice as long as your average comic, that it's still coming out steadily every month. Obviously, he must have had to have done all this well in advance. It's just got, the art just feels crazier, or maybe I'm getting more and more in sync with this comic with each issue. I'm now describing it as Mobius meets Mobius meets Dr. Seuss with a heavy influence of Sergio Aragonés and Crazy Cat and whoever the main artist was for the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. That's how I'm describing this art. And I've now learned to look closely at all the details. I had to read this in several sittings because I spend 10 minutes just looking at all the details of the cover. There's a lot to take in here. I've learned if you read everything and look at everything, you will get the story. It's all there, but you can't just go quickly through this Brendan Graham thing. Just for little details, like this is some noble guy, Lord, what was his name? Lord Pupil. He's out on his balcony doing Majestic Sigh. And there's a bunch of these alien butt creatures who I think are farting out noble perfumes. And like this little creature here running off is important. On a few pages later, he just appears briefly there, whispering in someone's ear, but that sets off a series of events. I really, this is so cool. I don't think it's certainly a comic just for a certain kind of reader, and that apparently I am that kind of reader. I can dip in and out of these comics all week long. And it's definitely making me want to go back and look closer at some of the other Brendan Graham books that I have where I've probably missed a whole bunch because I wasn't fully reading as deeply as I need to. And by reading, I mean looking at the visual information. And that's, I guess, where like the Crazy Cat and the Sergio Aragonés kind of side of things comes in, because those are artists that teach you to look at all the details in the drawing and take in more than just the surface of the dialogue and the main action. I think it's a 6-issue series, so there's 3 more to go, and I'm going to be very sad when it's over. But if the next 3 issues are like this, it's going to be, in my mind, a major masterpiece of comic book art. Rain Like Hammers. So that's about it. One of those weeks that definitely makes me glad that I buy a lot of comics and find a lot of good comics to read. And, for me personally, it's that aesthetic tingle, that pleasure from the art and the story that nothing else but comics. Cheers, everyone. It is I, Sleepy Reader. Oh, man. That's not good beer. Cheers, everyone. It is I, Sleepy Reader. Drinking mostly foam. It's going to be a little different than any I've done before, in some kind of way. What I want to do is share with you all the different ways